Ever since I was 9, sleep paralysis has been a pretty common issue for me. The first few times I got it, I absolutely freaked out. I remember becoming conscious, trying to move, and upon realizing I couldn't, trying to scream. I remember how my heart would pound when I couldn't, and would only become more terrified. Thankfully, my fear of sleep paralysis is in the past. I still get sleep paralysis pretty often, but thanks to 22 years of experience, I'm much more annoyed by it now than scared. That is, until now. Behind my house, there are some woods owned by someone nobody really knows. My neighborhood, it's pretty tight-knit. Everybody knows everybody's situation, except for the owner of the woods behind our houses. Rumors often make their way around the neighborhood, because kids are going to be kids, really. Thankfully, most adults realize that the rumors are probably just that, rumors. At least, that was until Billy Robinson went missing. Now, Billy was a good kid. I was good friends with his mother, Mrs. Robinson, and she loved to go on and on about what Billy was up to and how well he was doing in school. The only struggle I ever heard she had with him were his night terrors, but for the most part, they weren't really an issue. It wasn't often that I interacted with Billy, but whenever I did, he was always a very sweet kid. That's why it was so heartbreaking to hear about his disappearance. Around the time he disappeared, Mrs. Robinson started to tell me about how Billy's night terrors were becoming more frequent. She took him to all sorts of doctors and specialists. She handled his issue about as well as she could. But Billy was still getting worse, until he eventually went missing. It wasn't known until the morning that Billy had disappeared, and because of that, police had a lot of catch-up to do. They did everything they could. A search was organized with bloodhounds and a lot of searchers, one of which being me, actually. At first, we were hopeful that he would be found and swiftly returned home. But as the time went on, we began to lose hope. Eventually the hound stopped at the trunk of a tree, as though Billy were right there. But he wasn't. The police tried to get the hounds moving again, but they wouldn't let that spot go. Because the hounds stopped being of any use, they were taken away, with the hope that searchers could find Billy from there. As the hours dragged on, however, more and more volunteers had to retreat for one reason or another. By the end of the day, most of us had gone back home. Some with the intention of resuming the search in the morning, and others being unable due to work. I was one of those people. For about the first week and a half, I would spend a few hours of my free time searching for Billy. But as life piled on, I had less and less time to dedicate to looking for Billy, and eventually completely forgot about searching for him altogether. About a month after Billy's disappearance, his remains were located. Far out in the middle of the woods, they found Billy Robinson. I don't know the specifics of the state he was in, and quite frankly, I do not wish to. Miss Robinson was destroyed. According to her husband, she locked herself in her room for days. When she eventually returned to society, she just was never the same. Now rumors began to spread. Some people said that Billy likely just wandered off and got mauled to death by an animal. Others say that the owner of the land is some psychotic killer that ripped him apart. I never got involved with contributing to such rumors, out of respect for Mrs. Robinson. The only reason I'm talking about this now is because what happened to Billy is now happening to me. About 2 weeks ago, I got sleep paralysis again. Nothing really unusual about that. What made this instance noteworthy, however, was that there was a dark figure in my room. This figure had long, thin legs, and walked on all fours. From the corner of my room, it whispered something I couldn't really understand, actually. After that incident, I would get sleep paralysis every night. And every night, the figure would move closer to me, and its words would become more and more audible, until about the 5th night of this, that I could finally understand what it was saying.
Come with me.
Every night it would come back and repeat that phrase. I assumed that I was starting to hallucinate during my paralysis, until one night, after the figure spoke, my body got up. I didn't get up. My body just did it, all on its own. My body got out of bed and exited my room just as I have thousands of times before. As my body walked through the kitchen, it hit a glass which shattered on the ground upon impact, and promptly put me back in control of my body. Over the next few nights, the figure would return, and sometimes my body would get up and attempt to reach the woods. Every time, my body knocked an item down, or bumped into a piece of furniture that would fully awaken me and put me back in control. But every time, it got a little bit better at navigating the maze that it seemed to believe my house was. I was trying to find a way to stop my body from getting out on its own, until last night. I almost walked into the woods. Last night, my body skillfully navigated my house, unlocked, and to my horror, opened my back door. It wasn't until I got to the edge of the woods that my neighbor, Mr. Gonzalez, shouted out to me to say hello. When I regained control, I was so terrified that I didn't even return his greeting. Despite my legs trembling, I was able to run back inside my house and lock the door behind me. I didn't go back to sleep that night. That's why I'm writing this. I need to talk to someone who won't call me crazy. I need help with someone who is willing to listen. Please, dear reader, I need help. If you know what's happening to me, or how I can stop it, I'm begging you to reply. If you hear about a 31-year-old woman in Conway, Arkansas going missing, it just might be me.